Hello, good morning, and welcome back to the Fish Locker out on the shore. I'm out today, out on a rocky shore. We've got some massive spring tides. Now, I've explained to people about foraging on rocky shores before, and it's always best over spring tides. Those are larger tides. You've got large tides called spring tides. That means there's a large range between high tide and low tide, so the tide goes out further. The reason why those are good is because it uncovers areas that don't often get uncovered. Big tides are called spring tides, small tides are called neap tides. Every now and then you get an extra large spring tide. That's just to do with like the moon phases. Between the tides are affected by the moon and the sun on the earth. I'm not going to go into all of that, but also air pressure affects it. If you have extra high air pressure, it also forces the tide further out. So every now and then you do get an extra large spring tide and extra air pressure, so the tide goes out a long way. Now this weekend was when it happened. I went out foraging with James on the shore yesterday. He's at school today, so I'm out for a little bit of a scrape around myself, and I'm going to explore a new area, of course. I haven't actually foraged on this area before. We'll just find out what it's like when we do it. Let's go. All we're going to do is we're just raking about like little cracks in the crannies of the seaweed like this. We've got about 2 more hours of the ebb, so the tide's going to be going out for 2 more hours, and I'm just going to follow it along. Sorry, my throat's still a little bit croaky. But I've been at the Boat Life show and I was talking non-stop for 4 days. So that's why I sound like this. Yeah, all we're doing is we're just looking around like in the little cracks and the holes and the crannies between all the seaweeds and that. Just to see what we can find. We do have some viewers in places like Australia and they're like, oh, I would never do that round here. I say, well, we're quite fortunate in the UK. The worst that might happen to me here is I might come out with like a little crab on the end of my finger. Or it don't. In fact, it's a little bit disappointing. The most dangerous thing here, it's probably to my fingers, is something man-made. I'm more likely to hurt myself if I find some broken glass or something like that, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, that's what we're doing today. We're just going for a bit of a rake around in the rocks to see what I can find. Let's go. You get different areas of shore. The further down you get, the more seaweed you're going to get. This area here still gets an awful lot of wave action. So you can see the tops of the rocks are all washed clean, because any of these larger seaweeds that are hiding down in these cracks and crannies, if they were on the tops, they'd just get ripped off. So this flat fernweed here is called pepper dulse. We do have some little bits of, I think that's that's gutweed. The difference being is, if I can show you, actually this here is sea lettuce. You see, it just looks like a piece of lettuce. That's sea lettuce. That's in like big pieces. Whereas your smaller stuff, your smaller strands, is called gutweed. Well, it's like intestinalis. Whereas that's uvolactuca. The little tiny strands you can see in between are pom-pom weed. And you've got some serrated racks. Now, a serrated rack you can tell because the edges of them are serrated. Further up the shore, and maybe in some other places, you do get bladder rack. That's like your synonymous seaweed for high up on a shore, but it's got little blisters in it, and those bladders make the seaweed float. The reason why they do that is so that they're higher up in the water, so they get more sunlight. Because all of these all plants photosynthesize. Yes, that's why they do that. I'm going to grab my bag. I'm just looking down there actually, because I don't know if you can see, there are some seagulls cutting about. Now I do see, fishing same as foraging is, you look at the signs around you. That's telling me that there's something in one of them rock pools down there. It's either like a dead fish or a dead crab that they're eating, or it could be a shoal of little fish that's been stranded in a pool and seagulls are eating it. So I'm going to go down there and have an explore in a minute. There are some things today which I'm not going to be able to show you very well with this camera, so what I'm going to do is I'll get my other camera out. One of them is this here. This is called Sporobis. They're like keel worms. It's a little organism, a little worm that lives inside of a calcium shell, and it's a little spiral. These are the pepper dulse, the flat fernweeds. And these ones here, I point them out every now and again, but these ones are called bunny ears, because they've got little tiny segments in them. Apparently they look like bunny's ears. This is called Sporobis, and it's little tiny spiraled. They're like keel worms. It's a little organism, a little worm that lives inside of a calcium shell, and it's a little spiral. You see how the pom-pom weed sticks to the stalks of those pieces of serrated rack. Yeah. There is just so much to see. There is just life everywhere. I mean, your shells, you've got 5 different types. You've got dog whelks, you've got winkles, you've got periwinkles, you've got painted top shells. People would be amazed at what is right at your feet if only they would slow down long enough to see it. You will also find that if you find a flat rock like this, if you gently turn them over, right, now that, I don't quite know what that is. Oh, I know what that is. That's a little baby sea cucumber. It's not very often that I find something that I don't know what it is at all. Yeah, that's a tiny sea cucumber. Took that down there. Yeah. There's a daisy anemone with some little tiny furrowed crabs. But these are the keel worms. You know the other ones that I was saying that were Sporobis, like a little spiral? These are the other type. These are keel worms. I'm assuming that they get their name because they used to appear on the keels of ships. Just checking in all the cracks and the crannies. If you can see that there, that little cave under there, that's the perfect type of spot. We've still got another hour of the tide going out. Another hour and a half actually. So I'll come back here later, work my way down and cross, and I'll make sure I check this on the way back, because that's the perfect place for a crab or a lobster. That this time of year is always really good for going out searching on the shore, going foraging, or even going diving, because all the big kelps have died back. They've died back through the winter and been ripped up by all the stormy weather. So it's easier to find things because there's less seaweed for them to hide behind. What I'm doing is I've just got like a little underwater torch, look. Just exploring all the little caves. Now that one I can see there is a little tiny lobster right at the back. Well, he's only tiny. I can just see his antennas and his claws. Yeah, he's maybe going to be about that long. So there's no point trying to break him about and get him out there. But if he was any bigger, I could have just used my foraging hook to tease him out with there. Just up there on this side of this hole, there's a big brown crab, but he's right at the back of there. Yeah, I'm not getting him out. Yeah, that's what we're looking for. The holes and cracks and crannies like that. Right, I've got one. I can see one sticking out of that hole there. I can see a lobster half out of that hole. You see it? There, look. Yeah. There's one in there. We've still got a bit of the tide. Yeah, there's a lobster in that hole there. I've just seen it. I don't know how well you could show you with the camera. But yeah, there's a lobster in that hole. Now tide's got like another probably 3/4 of an hour of the ebb. I'll come back and get in when the tide's gone down a little bit further. It's a good sign. I don't know how deep that hole goes back, so I'll have a walk around and I'll see. This thongweed here is only really immature. It grows out of these like little tiny toadstools. It starts off and they're all just like little tiny bubbles, and then they grow flat and then they grow out of them like this. But yeah, give it a month's time and all of this will be 4 foot long. You won't be able to walk over here. If you're going to be coming foraging seaweeds, this is one of the best times of year to come for them, because they're all still in their prime. They're just coming out fresh. Because you've got your Irish moss, you've got your pepper dulse, your racks, your sea spaghettis, your big kelps, still fresh. That one's not, he's a bit gnarly, he's had a hard winter. I was just looking at that hole there and I thought, oh, that looks promising, that. As I've shined the light up in the back of it. I think there is a lobster claw up there. But that hole looks like it goes back like about 6 foot. I'll have a quick scrape about with hook and see what I can find. But there is a star Ascidian. And they're a colony. It's not one organism like a sponge, like a seaweed. It's a colony of little tiny organisms. And they make the most amazing shapes and colours. I've seen them all the way from like purple, pink, white, bright yellow, like a luminous fire orange, even down to like a proper sapphire blue. They're incredible. Yes. Every square foot is covered by just a myriad of species. I was right, there was a lobster claw in there, but look. Completely empty, hollow. So a lobster has been in there to shed its shell, and this is the empty shell that it's climbed out of. So yeah, close but not quite. Yeah, it was just up the back of, right up the back of there. I mean, it goes back that far that the lobster might still be in there. I had a really gentle play around in that hole. I looked up, I could see the antennas waving around, and I thought it's still in there. So I took out all of the old shell, there, all the bits that I could find, and then gently teased that out. Right, that is a properly, like a jelly lobster. Look at how blue it is. That is a proper, like a proper sapphire blue. Call these a royal blue. That's how big it is, but it is completely, look, just squishy soft. People are, I'll quickly explain it. Crustaceans, all decapods, anything with a hard exoskeleton, in order for them to grow, they have to shed off their old shell, which was this old hard shell here. When they do that, they're soft underneath, they absorb water and then they harden up. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lay it up alongside its old shell. So you can see, because at this point in time he has shed his shell maybe in the last 10 or 12 hours, and this is the size that he was before. There, look, so you can see how much he's grown. He's grown an extra inch, and this is how big his tail was. So his tail's grown that much, but he's an absolute stunner blue. And these claws are so soft that he couldn't nip me even if he tried. Now, when they're in this state, they are incredibly fragile. I'm not going to hurt you, lads. I'm not going to hurt you. Just kind of tuck yourself down in there. I'll cover you up with some seaweed so you think you're safe. Right. I'm not going to hurt him. What I'm going to do is I'm going to slip him back inside of there. But yeah, that was wonderful to see. They're no good to eat. Even though he's big enough to take, he's no good to eat because he's full of water. He's just soft. There's no meat in him at the minute. He would need a couple of 3 weeks to harden up. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put him back in that hole, and I'm going to put his old shell back in there as well. Because what they do is they'll eat their old shell, and the calcium helps them harden up their the calcium helps them harden up their new shell. Yeah. He's a beauty. What a beautiful colour blue. You notice there as well that it's got two different types of claws. He's got a big crunching claw and a little tiny cutting claw. So he's got something to kill stuff with and a little pair of scissors to chop it up with. But yeah, he's that soft that he can't support the weight of his own body out the water. But yeah, what a beauty. Right. Really, really gently. Yeah, it's okay, lad. I'm putting you back. Really gently slipping back in there. back. I'm just going to very gently slide him back in there into the water and put all of his bits of old shell back in there with him. There you go. See, look, the only thing he leaves behind is his old gills and his old exoskeleton. And like I say, he'll probably eat all that over the next week. Eat all of his old shell and use the calcium to harden up his new shell. Let's go back and find that other lobster now, because the tide should have ebbed off of it. I really like these. That is the anchor of a furbelows kelp. That's solid on there. See the difference in the stalk, look. That's only got like a little anchor and a little stalk. These furbelows, it's proper like a belt strap, isn't it? They make the funniest sounds too. Yeah. Right, the tide's ebbing off lovely now. If you can see all the different species of sponge all stuck to the undersides of the rocks. Normally, on a normal spring tide, the tide might only come to about here. We've got an extra foot. The tide today is actually below chart datum. So that means it's lower than the lowest astronomical tides of the year. It's a perfect time to come out foraging. Down there, let me have a look. Conger eel. There's a conger eel at the bottom of this hole. You see it? See it right at the end of there? Yeah. That's why you shouldn't stick your hand where you can't see it. These are quite interesting as well. These are painted top shells. And where did I see it there? Look, that's what's called a stingwinkle. Now that's a carnivorous shell. That'll climb up on the top of the limpets, the mussels or these, and they burrow a little hole inside of them with like a drill tooth. They'll eat them. So when you're up on the beach, you're up around like on the high tide line, and you find like a limpet shell or a mussel shell or something with a little tiny perfect round hole in it. This shows you how cold it is today. And when you find a little tiny hole in it, it's either them or it's a dog whelk. There is a spiny starfish. He's lost one of his legs and he's growing it. Well, look, he's eating it. You see that? What they do is, these legs are really sticky. They'll crawl around, and then we find like a little painted chop shell like that. They'll grab hold of it and work it all the way into that mouth in the middle. Look at that, he has sucked that absolutely clean. Yeah. Spiny starfish. You can tell down here that I'm right amongst the areas that don't usually get uncovered. And it's hard to explain, but it's the smell. Doesn't smell bad, just smells of like really rich seaweed. And you can see because of all these kelps here. All these kelps, nothing. Yeah, this is usually, like even on normal low tide, this is usually still underwater. Go in there. What have we got in there? Where's my torch? Anything? Nothing. Squat lobster, I can see a squat lobster crawling around. No, not much. Another spiny starfish. Spiny starfish there. And a couple more of them. There's quite a big one. There's a snake looks anemone. Little tiny furrowed crabs. Wow, what's that? A big sponge. what I've found here, that there actually, you can see it, those are the eggs for a sea lemon, for a nudibranch, for a sea slug. That sponge there, I just think looks wonderful. And sat right on top of it is a cowrie shell. Just fascinating. Every rock is just absolutely covered in life. The pool what I found that lobster in earlier on that's still there, I don't mind leaving it for a little bit longer because he's in a pool. I'm right down, that's further up the tide line. I'm right down here now. This is only going to be uncovered for the next 10 or 15 minutes. So I'll have a good look around here now and I'll work on that on the way back up. The difficulty I've got here is this hole is really deep and that lobster is sat just to see its claws there, can't you? If it decides to go backwards, the hole is too deep for me to get it out. Yeah, I'll have a quick go now. I'll go and have another rake around and I'll come back and see if I can't get it out later. Of course, there might be an easier one further down the shore. The perseverance has paid off. Got him out. See, it's a male, but I'm 2 little dots near my finger. He's got a narrow tail and he's got quite big claws. But yeah, he was right back there. The full length of my arm, the full length of the hook. And all I managed to do is, I knew he was back there. I couldn't see him, but I could feel him. I just kept playing away at him, and then I just stayed real still. And what he probably thought was, whatever it is that's attacking me, it's left. So here's my chance and I'll escape. So all I did was I just stayed real still and waited for him to come out at front. And then grabbed him real quick. Couldn't show you with camera because I had to take 2 hands. But yeah, I got him. And he is, sorry then my battery died. He is the perfect size. He is close to 100 mil. So he's a perfect size to take. You can see how dexterous they are with those claws. You've got to be careful, otherwise they'll get you. Yeah, you fella are coming with me. To say I'm pleased about that guy is an understatement. I am known to be stubborn. That was stubbornness. I got that one out. I was on him for about 20 minutes. Yeah. Outsmarted him though. Right, let's make our way further down the shore. See what else we can find. I'm about up to the max, but I have just spied something in there. There is a big spider crab just on the edge of there. There you go. So actually it's early for these guys. This is a female. You can see by the big pad she's got underneath. Yeah, really well camouflaged, aren't they? Look. Oh, I've got a wet sleeve. Let's make our way back over there. Yeah, the water clarity that we've got at the moment is absolutely fantastic. But it is bitter. It is bitterly cold. I can see by the way that all the rock pools are filling up. Here we are, we're probably half an hour past low tide now. So I'm going to check out these last couple of rocks here. We'll start making our way back. But yeah, we've got what we wanted. This seaweed here almost looks like cellophane plastic. It's called lava. Got sea lettuce, lava, and these here, these like little pimples. I don't know when you can see them. These are the start of the thongweed. They grow up like that, then they flatten off, and then the thongs come out. There's another lovely spiny starfish. This one's got more red in it. Purple tips, red, blue and green. Again, eating a little winkle. Right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my way up to the bottom of the cliff, walk along. I'll spend 5-10 minutes cleaning up and see if there's any marine plastics or anything like that I can pick up and take with me. Oh, there's a perfect example. You see that crab hiding in there? That velvet swimming crab there, look. That was exactly what I was talking about finding the cracks and the crannies, because that's where the crabs live. Here are 3 incredible snake-locked anemones. This one has got some red in it. There's the mouth right in the centre. Here's one. This shows you this one's actually on the move. Look, that's how they attach to a rock. He's actually got me this one. I think he thinks he wants. I think I'm a little bit too big for you, mate. Yeah, they're incredible. And there is a little brown and purple one, just down on the sand. Now I think they're just incredible. It just looks like Medusa's hair, doesn't it? But yeah, on a night underneath a UV light, they are amazing. I'll put a little clip in here now. It's amazing because they're the same species and yet under a UV light they glow like something crazy, and those, no, not. Oh, he was fast. Little squat lobster then. A furrowed crab. Xanthoincissus, and there's his counterpart, Xanthohydrophilus. The only difference being is he's got hairy legs and he doesn't. Furrowed crab, pie crust crab. Different names for a xantho crab. And all these rocks are covered in keel worms. Oh, a little tiny brittle star. Very little brittle star. Just having a little look. I don't know if you can see the scallops living in these little cracks and crannies here, look. There's little queenie scallops living in the holes. But somewhere down at the back of there, I don't know what it is yet, I've just seen it move. I don't know if it's a crab or a lobster. But yeah, there's a nice little cave to explore as well. I'm going to put the camera down and have a little bit of a rake around, see what I can find. I've had a cracking little walk around today. It was, the area's got an awful lot of potential. But this time of year, middle of winter, there isn't an awful lot about. So to be able to find 2 lobsters like that was brilliant. Tons of holes though that were empty. And I think in summertime, yeah, this is going to be a really good spot. In fact, what I might do is come summertime, because most of it was in like shallow clay rock pools, is I'll bring James back here snorkeling. That'll be a brilliant introduction for him to snorkeling. Because if he's in a 2-foot pool, he can just stand up and put his face down. So it's I mean, I've been doing it for years. I've been snorkeling about for 20 plus years. Getting your kids into it and probably getting Hannah into it, it needs to be let them dip their toe first. But yeah, got me lobster. I'm happy. Let's make our way back up to the van without falling over. That'd be just my luck. Slip over on the way back to the van. The lobster from today's session went towards a cook-up at Spargo's Kitchen where we made a lobster bisque. I will put a link in the description of this video so you can watch that one.